Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, looking to nip their wage tussle in the bud, South Korean businessmen with factories at the Kaesong industrial complex meet with North Korean officials to try and reach a solution. Korea's jobless rate hits a 5-year high of 4.6% last month, but the nation's so-called real unemployment rate reaches 12.5%. Plus, at least 19 people, including 17 foreign tourists, are killed in a terrorist attack on a museum in Tunisia. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Thursday, March 19th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. And we begin with the latest discussions to end the wrangling over wages at the inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex. On Wednesday, a group of South Korean businessmen visited their factories there for talks with North Korean officials after Pyongyang's unilateral demand for a wage hike for its workers. For more on what was a very busy day, our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Although North Korea rejected a petition from the South Korean companies, the South Korean businessmen say Wednesday's talks in Kaesong were quite productive.
We delivered vivid stories from the company's perspective, at least 10 times more than what was written on a one-page petition.
The rare day trip comes after North Korea demanded a unilateral wage hike of around 5% and a revision of regulations last month. South Korea says the issue must be settled through inter-Korean dialogue.
The government thinks it's appropriate for North Korea to come to talks as soon as possible to resolve issues regarding the management and improvement of the Kaesong complex through government-level talks.
With North Korea refusing the offer, 14 South Korean businessmen met with Park Soo, the North Korean official who oversees the management of the business park, to urge Pyongyang to engage in talks.
We asked North Korea to consider the fact that many companies have nightmares about the suspension in 2013, and that it should engage in government-level talks swiftly.
The businessmen described Wednesday's talks as amicable, adding they will hold similar meetings in the future. The joint business park, where some 53,000 North Koreans work at 125 South Korean factories, is the last remaining link of inter-Korean economic cooperation. The South Korean government, companies, and experts all say that another shutdown of the business park will not be in North Korea's interest. However, many are keeping an eye on a planned anti-Pyongyang leaflet launch next week and whether it will influence business operations at the Kaesong industrial complex. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News, Paju.
Now, high-level security officials from South Korea and the United States will likely meet in Washington next month to discuss the controversial issue of the possible deployment of an advanced American missile defense system to the Korean peninsula. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The U.S. missile defense system known as THAAD is built to intercept incoming tactical and ballistic missiles at a range of up to 200 kilometers. The system uses kinetic energy with a hit-to-kill method that in turn creates an upper-tier defense shield. It's also equipped with a sophisticated radar system that has a range of up to 2,000 kilometers. This is widely considered to be the reason why Beijing is so strongly against its potential deployment to the Korean peninsula, as a radar will be able to cover Beijing and its surrounding areas. However, the U.S. says THAAD will enhance South Korea's ability to deal with Pyongyang's nuclear and ballistic missile threats, as well as enhancing surveillance on the communist regime. But critics see the possible deployment as Washington's attempt to reel in its Asian ally into its missile defense program. South Korea has acknowledged the battery would enhance its national security, but says it has no plans to buy the multi-billion-dollar system. Military sources say the issue will likely be addressed at the South Korea-U.S. biannual Integrated Defense Dialogue set for mid-April in Washington. The sources add that South Korea's Deputy Minister for National Defense Policy, Ryu Jae-sung, and U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia, David Helvey, will represent the two sides at next month's meeting. South Korea has stressed on numerous occasions that it's developing its own low-tier missile defense system to protect the country against the North's missile threats. The so-called Korea Air Missile Defense and kill chain systems are set to be implemented by 2023. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, the presidential office says no decision has been made on whether Korea should join a China-led development bank. But, according to senior staff, the administration is expected to make a decision after a review period. On Wednesday, President Park's senior economic secretary denied reports Seoul had already agreed to join the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, adding that there have been no official discussions on the matter. The AIIB is a thorny topic between China and the United States. Washington views the bank as a move by Beijing to take control of economic and trade order in the Asia-Pacific region. President Park Geun-hye says people who threaten Korea's national security and identity shouldn't go unchecked. At a ceremony to appoint new police officers on Wednesday, President Park highlighted the growing importance of the police's role in maintaining security, saying there's still regional differences in Koreans' sense of safety. The president's remarks follow the recent knife attack on US Ambassador Mark Lippert in broad daylight, as well as a series of deadly shooting incidents in the country. Referring to her economic innovation and structural reform drive, President Park asked the new officers to lead efforts to create a transparent and safe Korea, which she said was a requirement for reviving the economy. China is being coy about speculation Chinese President Xi Jinping could hold summit talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Moscow in May, when the two leaders are expected to be in town for a World War II memorial ceremony. A spokesman for China's foreign ministry said on Wednesday that China has no information to share about a possible first meeting between the two leaders. The Kremlin has announced that Kim Jong-un will travel to the Russian capital for this ceremony, but Pyongyang has yet to comment. Moscow has confirmed Chinese President Xi Jinping will be there for the ceremony on May 9th. Now, if Kim does head to Russia, it will mark the first time since the Korean War that a North Korean leader has not chosen China as his first overseas destination. Now, in a widely anticipated move, the US Federal Reserve has opened the door for a rate hike in June by removing the word patient from its official policy statement. Wrapping up a two-day meeting on Wednesday, the Fed said it will raise the interest rate when there is improvement in the job market and it is reasonably confident inflation will move back to its 2% range. The statement said there will be no rate hike in April, but the Fed remained cautious, saying any move would depend on incoming data. The Fed had kept its interest rates at a record low, near 0%, since the global financial crisis in 2008. Now back here in Korea, and the debate is intensifying over the government's economic policies, despite some hopeful signs of agreement this week between the president and the leaders of Korea's main rival parties. Our Park Ji-won reports.
Ruling Central Party Chairman Kim Moo-sung said Wednesday that Tuesday's trilateral talks with the president and main opposition party leader provided the rival parties with a good opportunity to see that bipartisan efforts are necessary in order to revive the economy. Kim added that both parties need to focus on pending bills that could benefit the economy. He also criticized main opposition party leader Moon Jae-in for characterizing the Park administration's economic policies as a failure during Tuesday's meeting.
I think Moon's remarks that the economy is a failure and facing a total crisis could lower economic players' confidence at a time when the nation's economy is taking a positive turn.
Moon, the chairman of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party, apparently doesn't agree with Kim's assessment of the current economic situation. He said Wednesday that there's a huge gap in the way the economy is assessed and in devising measures to counter the crisis.
We've realized once again that there is a huge difference in perspectives. The current administration doesn't have any critical minds or lacks measures for addressing issues like normalizing the corporate tax rate, housing rental and jeonse costs, and the country's mounting household debt.
The presidential office also defended itself against Moon's remarks. It said that the economy has seen steady growth since 2012, with a growth rate of 3.3% last year, up from 2.3% in 2012. The presidential office added that it takes time for the rise in the growth rate to be felt by the general public and vowed to focus on consolidating the nation's economic recovery. Presidential office spokesman Min Kyung-wook expressed the hope that the trilateral talks will generate momentum for parliamentary cooperation in reviving the economy. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And while we're on the topic of the economy, fresh data on the labour market shows Korea did add jobs in the month of February, but the so-called real unemployment rate still hit a record high. Our Shin Se-min has the details.
The nation's unemployment rate hit a 5-year high in February of 4.6%, a jump from 3.8% from January and 0.1 percentage point higher than the year before. Statistics Korea said Wednesday that the high jobless figure comes on the back of seasonal factors. February is when students in Korea graduate, pushing the unemployment rate up that month. In addition, Korea's real unemployment rate in February hit a record high of 12.5% since the data collection began last May. That's 3 times as high as the official jobless rate. The real unemployment rate includes day laborers, people who are looking for a job, those who are underemployed, and those who have given up looking for a job. The figure is much broader than the official unemployment rate, which only accounts for the number of people who want jobs but have failed to get one. Despite the rise in the unemployment rate, the number of jobs created increased as well. Over 370,000 new jobs were created last month compared to the year before. The number of employed people topped some 25.2 million last month, also thanks to seasonal factors, as major local companies hold the first of 2 annual recruiting rounds during that time of the year.
Graduation season has 2 major effects on the job market. Some graduates may be hired right off the bat, while others may remain jobless. So this is the reason behind the surge in both the jobless and unemployment rates last month.
The Statistics Office also said more young people and people in their 50s found jobs last month, boosting the employment rate. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, if you're a woman working for a top company in Korea, chances are you're earning significantly less than your male counterparts. Business rating agency CEO Score's recent survey on Korea's top 290 companies out of the top 500 shows that men earn about $23,000 more a year than women in those companies. The average annual salary for men last year was $64,000. While women earned $41,000, the gender wage gap was the widest in the banking sector, where the difference was a staggering $40,000. The agency said the reason is mainly because men stay in their jobs longer than women, and also because women don't get promoted as quickly as men. Now, trade between Korea and Japan has slumped quite significantly over the past 3 years. Experts say with the yen likely to stay weak for some time to come, trade volume will likely drop to new depths this year as well. Our Paulie has the latest figures.
Korea's trade with Japan has been heading downhill. According to the Korea International Trade Association, bilateral trade between the two countries came to about $86 billion last year, down 9.2% from a year earlier. Korea's exports to Japan slumped about 7% to $32 billion, while imports fell more than 10% to almost $54 billion. This marks the 3rd straight year that the bilateral trade volume has dropped after peaking in 2011. Preliminary data also shows that trade between the two countries fell almost 14% in the first 2 months of this year to about $10 billion. The decline has mainly been attributed to the weak yen.
The falling value of the Japanese yen has made Korean products less competitive in terms of price in Japan, and that's resulted in lower demand. Japan has also increased production overseas, so imports out of Japan have seen a decline.
Experts forecast a downward trend to continue as long as Tokyo's monetary stimulus programs keep the value of the Japanese yen down. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Now, a team of researchers in Korea have developed a technological solution for a common problem that can drive you to despair. That problem is noisy neighbors, and this is especially an issue in Korea given the abundance of so many high-rise apartment buildings with thin walls and thin floors. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
A noisy upstairs neighbor can cause a lot of stress, especially at night. The footsteps or other sounds that can be heard between floors are transmitted via low-frequency vibrations. Materials aimed at reducing the noise have been developed, and some apartment buildings have even tried filling the space between floors, but neither method has been very effective. Now, researchers in Korea have developed a new technology that could take care of the problem. They have devised a new acoustic absorption structure with springs that reduces between-floor noise by absorbing low-frequency vibrations.
The theory here is that the device controls the vibrations and acts as a spring.
The device can reduce the transmission of noise between floors by up to 30%, and the installation cost is also 20% less than existing soundproofing methods. The researchers hope the device can be used not only to soundproof floors, but also in a wider range of fields.
The technology can be adapted to manufacture landing gear for planes or wind-powered electrical generators, basically anything that needs to counter big or fast vibrations.
The findings have been published in the March edition of the journal Transactions on Mechatronics. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the rest of the global headlines we're following on this Thursday morning here from Seoul, Korea. We're going to connect to Eunice Kim at the News Center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. There's horror in Tunisia's capital this morning after gunmen wearing military garb stormed an iconic museum and unleashed gunfire, killing at least 19 people. The strike happened around noon local time at the National Bardo Museum, located inside a heavily guarded parliament compound in central Tunis. The Tunisian prime minister said most of those fatalities were tourists, foreign visitors from Spain, Germany, Poland, and Italy. At least one security officer was also killed, while several others were wounded. Government officials said militants took hostages for a time, adding that security forces had entered the museum some 2 hours later, gunning down 2 of those attackers. Local reports say at least 3 others were being pursued. The militants have not been identified, nor has any group claimed responsibility for this assault. In a national address, Tunisia's prime minister urged unity, saying the strike had an aim of destroying the Tunisian economy, which heavily relies on tourism. And over in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has clinched victory in Tuesday's election after his Likud party took the most seats in the Knesset with almost all the votes counted. After the results were confirmed, the 65-year-old leader made a trip to the Western Wall in Jerusalem, a holy site in Judaism, in a traditional Thanksgiving visit. He said he was moved by the responsibility given to him by Israel against all odds and in the face of powerful forces. He also said he would form a new coalition government quickly, his party adding it could come within 2 to 3 weeks. Meanwhile, the surprise victory is also striking concern in the international community, particularly as Mr. Netanyahu had promised not to see a Palestinian state while he is in power, this in the final hours of his campaigning. The White House, together with the UN and the EU, have all urged urged Israel to seek a two-state solution. U.S. President Barack Obama has yet to extend his congratulations amid his rift with the Israeli leader. And finally, massive demonstrations to protest the inauguration of a new €1 billion ECB headquarters in Frankfurt has turned violent, ending with at least 350 people arrested, according to local reports. Anti-austerity protesters had filled the streets near the new tower, dubbing their movement as Blockupy. Later, police cars were seen set on fire and clashes with riot police, as some protesters said police had used pepper spray and water cannons against them.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off in marathon. Now, there's been several non-Korean athletes who became naturalized Koreans, most of whom now play ice hockey. But how about marathon? Well, now Wilson Erupe, who won this year's Seoul International Marathon, has seen quite a bit of success here in Korea, including the course record he set during the 2012 Seoul International Marathon and his win in Gyeongju back in 2011. But now, after expressing his desire to be naturalized and represent Korea in the Olympics, he's going to find out if he can indeed be naturalized before leaving Korea on the 30th. And according to several marathon teams here in the nation, they're more than happy to have Erupe represent Korea, as they hope to speed up the process in making it happen. Now, it's a known fact that when it comes to women's golf, it's the Koreans who dominate. But this season, it's a whole new level of domination. Now, first off, in the LPGA, there's been 6 LPGA Tour events so far, where 5 Koreans have won the titles, with the other being Lydia Ko, who's a Korean native. But it's not just in the LPGA, as the latest European Tour was all won by either a Korean or Korean native as well. And with the JTBC Founders Cup teeing off this week, the big question is, who's next? As the 2 super rookies in Kim Hyo-ju and Chang Ha-na still seek their first victory, while Lydia Ko looks to extend their lead in the world rankings, with Park In-bi not competing in the event. That's been exciting in the KBL playoffs so far, and it got even more exciting on Wednesday as the best-of-5 round-of-4 series tipped off with a repeat of last year's championship series between the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus and the Changwon LG Sakers. And the well-rested Mobis team getting a great jump start to the game as they outscore LG 29-18 in the first quarter before going into halftime with a comfortable 45-33 lead thanks to Yang Dong-gun's 18 points just in the first half alone. And despite LG trying to change up their game plan in the second half, Mobis never looks back, with Ricardo Ratliff putting up an insane 24 points, 19 rebounds, and 6 blocks as Mobis takes game 1 86-71. Now, wearing a green LA Dodgers hat for St. Patrick's Day, Lee Hyun-jin went into his second spring start against the Texas Rangers. Only he didn't get to face Chu Shin-soo since he was given the day off. Well, there's always next time, right? Well, either way, Lee Hyun-jin not as sharp as he was in his first start against the Padres, as he pitches 3 innings while striking out 2 Rangers, but does give up 3 runs, one of which was unearned. Now, still early in the spring, though, as the hefty lefty will probably get a good 5 innings in his next spring start. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. It didn't rain a lot here in Seoul yesterday, but it was much needed rain that we had. Dryness got relieved and the air quality has returned to normal, to good level across the nation. And as we can see, most of the rain clouds have moved away from the peninsula, and a good amount of sunshine is in store to shine down the entire nation today. And upper provinces will have a very warm day today, with highs getting up to near 20 degrees, but southern provinces will have readings remaining on the seasonal averages. So let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The morning low here in Seoul is kicking off at 9, then later on will peak at 18, and that's even milder than Daegu, Gwangju, and Busan, where the highs will peak at 17 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon should see a high of 16 and 19, and Dokdo will top out at 12 this afternoon. Well, that's all for the weather. Hope you have a wonderful start to the day.
Well, thank you very much, Jion, for the weather. And that's going to do it for now. Korea Today is coming up at the top of the hour in about 35 minutes' time. Have a wonderful day and do stay tuned to Arirang TV. Goodbye.